Virtually everyone who has studied or worked in California's youth prisons will tell you that the system was broken and it needed fixing. Kids who were prisoners were being beaten and abused. The courts have told the state prison officials to clean up their act and their prisons. Tonight, the CBS 13 investigation on the allegations and the beatings and what prison officials say they're doing to fix the problems. When kids go to prison in California, it's not pretty. Joaquin Diaz de Leon knows it firsthand. He was locked up in a California state juvenile prison when he was 16 years old.
And I witnessed how the correctional officers would put you in your place, and if you weren't in your place, they would beat the shit out of you behind closed doors or in front of other people.
For instance, there is this videotape. On January 20th, 2004, a young man named Narciso Morales was a prisoner at Chad Youth Correctional Facility in Stockton. He and another prisoner named Vincent Baker were placed on the floor while two guards, Delwyn Brown and Marcel Berry, repeatedly punched the two young men as they lay face down. The guards deliver blow after blow, while other guards stand by and watch.
I thought I was gonna die that day. And
6 years later, Morales spoke about that brutal beating.
I'm just happy that I, survived it. Was given another chance.
Initially, guards Brown and Berry were fired for using excessive force, but they were later reinstated. Brown is now a parole officer. It was a black eye and a low point for California's Division of Juvenile Justice.
But it is difficult for us to see because we don't want to be connected with that. That is not what we want to show.
Rachel Rios is the acting director of the Division of Juvenile Justice. She is quick to point out that what we see in the video has always been unacceptable. Rios says that reform is well underway at the DJJ and positive changes have happened. In fact, changes were mandated by a court order in 2005, but we found that the DJJ is 3 years behind schedule with its remedial plan. We wanted to know why. Mothers of young offenders do too.
It's cruel in there, period.
Lena Roldan's 18-year-old son is a prisoner at Chad. He's tried to commit suicide 3 times. Lena says her son is afraid of other inmates, and he says the guards are not protecting him.
And I just seen my son today. He's marked up, he's scarred up, and he says that's his ticket to freedom if he kills himself. So it's hard. It's really hard to hear that.
Critics say serious problems remain in California's 4, soon-to-be 3, remaining juvenile prisons.
They use pepper spray a lot, and they very often use it against mentally ill youth.
Sarah Norman is a lawyer for the nonprofit that in 2003 sued the California Youth Authority, now the DJJ, over its conditions. The lawsuit describes how the DJJ deprived teenage prisoners the required education and subjected them to illegal conditions of confinement, isolating them for more than 23 hours a day. Joaquin Diaz de Leon still lives with the memories of isolation. So when you were in Ione, you were in solitary confinement with no plumbing, no bed for 24 hours and no food.
That's right.
An Alameda County judge ordered DJJ officials to fix those and several other problems. But in July of this year, the court said the DJJ failed to do so. The judge later ruled that DJJ officials have willfully violated the court's orders.
The court has ordered defendant to end the practice of isolation. Are you still isolating?
We don't isolate youth. We don't isolate youth.
I consider being locked in a cell for 21, 22, 23 hours a day without anyone to talk to. I consider that solitary confinement, yes.
In 2005, the court settlement ordered the DJJ to treat prisoners better, giving them hundreds of specific changes to make. But as of tonight, the court's experts say the DJJ is only 80% compliant. Joaquin eventually got out and stayed out. He's a young man determined to make it in college and then on the right side of the law as an attorney.
We all need grace, at least an inch of it, we all do. Because if it was you or your son or your daughter, someone you cared for, you would want them to have grace. But we seem to forget that sometimes.
As for the remaining compliance issues, including the use of force, isolation, and programs for girls, violence, and gangs, Rios admits that those who run the DJJ now have learned from past mistakes.
And we recognize that we still have work to do. We're not saying that we're completely done in our change. We still have work to do.
Now, at one time, there were some 10,000 prisoners in California's youth prisons. Today, there are just a little more than 1,000. So the system is much smaller. And by the way, one expert who has been studying this told us that he believes Director Rios is working very hard to make it better.
Okay, so if there were 10,000, now there's just about 1,000.
Right.
Where did the 9,000 go? Where are they?
Well, a lot of them are now being treated at the county level, and that's the direction that this is all headed. This is clearly does not work on a state level. It's too big, too broad. But if you get a kid closer to home where mom and dad can visit more often, that seems to work a little bit better with rehabilitation. So that's the movement these days.
Try to hone in on it.
Yep, and keep it local. That's the way they want to go.